in the South Shore neighborhood. 3 people were killed early Sunday morning when the driver struck a group of pedestrians.
WGN's Dana Rebick speaking with the family of one of the victims. Dana.
Well, one of the men killed worked with children on the south side of Chicago at the Gary Comer Youth Center as a culture specialist and was thinking about applying to grad schools. His life tragically cut short as police now try to find this hit-and-run driver.
Jalen was an outstanding young man. Recently just graduated from University of Michigan. And came back home, worked with a lot of youth on the south side of Chicago. His future was bright. It's unfortunate that it was cut short.
Curtis Henderson's cousin, 23-year-old Jalen Osley, one of 3 young men killed in a violent hit-and-run early Sunday. It happened around 5 a.m. outside Jeffery Pub, an LGBTQ bar in the 7000 block of Street.
On Sunday the 14th of August 2022, 4 black white men decided to go have a fun moment at Jeffery's Pub bar, the longest black LGBTQ running bar in Chicago, Illinois. Unknown to them, that day will be the end of 3 of their lives. It was gathered that after the men had had a fun time drinking in the bar and having dinner at the bar, a fight occurred in Jeffrey's Pub bar that led these youngsters to the street. As a regular youngster, we all have misunderstanding. Just as the fight and the misunderstanding escalated to the street, an unknown driver drove through the crowd, striking 4 of them and killing 3, with only 1 survivor. This is an event that brings fear and brings terror in the hearts of black LGBTQ queer people like you and myself. It took me a while to sit down to look at research to report this news. I didn't just want to take this news off the internet and just throw it to Curie Talk. I wanted to do a little bit of findings. And as of today, the survivor has decided to tell his own story. I'm going to allow you guys to listen to the clips and listen to what the survivor had to say, and we're going to dive into this topic and have more conversation about the killing of the 3 gay black men in Chicago, and also what does this mean to us as LGBTQ people, not just as LGBTQ people, but as black gay men living in America.
Cheryl, Carly McKinnon says he doesn't know who was driving that vehicle that hit him and 3 other men, and he doesn't recognize the vehicle that he's seen in that video. Now, days after that incident and just a few days before his birthday, McKinney says everything just feels numb.
Badly bruised, cut, and sprained, Carly J. McKinney is hobbling along in a fog of grief. Sunday morning, he woke up in Stroger Hospital, only to hear
3 passed. I'm the only one that walked away, so able to live another day.
He doesn't remember the impact. Early Sunday morning, McKinney and his 2 best friends were leaving Jeffery Pub in Chicago's South Shore neighborhood.
But all I remember is I was trying to get my close family friend, I call him cousin, Rec, he go by Rec, was trying to get him from fighting another male.
Dashcam video from a nearby car shows the men were in the street fighting before a driver speeding southbound on Jeffrey near 71st Street slams into them. It's video too disturbing to show on television.
And by the time we got halfway in the street, this car came from the side, and I seen it through my peripheral. I seen the bright light. That's what made me jump back. And next thing you know, I was hit and woke up in the ambulance.
The impact of that car killed McKinney's 2 best friends, Devontae Vivetter and Donald Huey, and a 3rd man they didn't know, Jalen Osley.
It appears to be intentional, just based upon what everybody has seen.
The Jeffery Pub is one of the longest serving black gay bars in the country. The National Black Justice Coalition is calling for this to be investigated as a hate crime. Chicago police say right now they don't have evidence to support that.
What other reason would you hit another human being other than hate?
Police say they have recovered the car they believe was used in that incident near the scene at 71st and Jeffrey. But tonight, police still don't know who was driving that vehicle. They believe somebody knows, and they're asking people to come forward with information.
Let's say the way the thing is. Three youngsters decided to go to a bar to have a fun time. They just like, the life was just full. You know, life could be so stressful, and they just want to ease themselves out of all they've been going through. Only for them to get to a place, drink, eat, and have a misunderstanding. There's someone from the bar who knew those people go into their car, drive straight through this crowd. That is the first thing. We expected the police at that time to have gone to the restaurant, to Jeffery's Pub, and asked for their CCTV to know who was in the pub or who was in the restaurant at that day, at that time. We expect the police to go through the residents of that street and gather surveillance cameras and look for who entered that car. Was that car parked at Jeffery's Pub? These are the first question. Has that car been in that premises? We also expect that the police would have gone to the victims' families to question them. Yes, it's a grieving time, but we need answers. The grieving family need answers. We expect the police to go to the grieving family to look at go through phone records, go through text messages to know if any of the victims or anyone in Jeffery's Pub had issues with someone and had received a death threat a month, 2 months, or 3 months to this incident. If this was a white Caucasian, and I'm sorry to say this, I'm not saying this out of hate, but I'm saying this out of fact. If this was a white child that got struck, that got hit, there would have been helicopters. There would have been LAPDs everywhere. There would have been FBIs everywhere. In short, by now, the helicopter would have been following that car. They would have known whose car it was. They would have known the registration number of that car. And they would have known who the killer is by now. So the first thing is this racism in play? Because these are black white people struck, and the police is saying they're not even treating it as a hate crime. What other justification does one need to see a crowd of gay men and drive through them? These are questions that need answers. Because we know, we've seen the American police work. We've seen the force of the American police. When the Black Lives Matter protest happened, we saw the American police. They came out with ammunitions.
Millions of Americans took to the streets to protest police violence following the murder of George Floyd last year, and in some instances, they were met with violent crackdowns. Across the country, videos of police officers attacking peaceful protesters began surfacing on social media. Using tear gas, rubber-tipped bullets, bicycles, and batons, police officers deployed an arsenal of so-called less-than-lethal weapons to suppress protest and disperse crowds. But what happens when police unleash these weapons and leave people no path to escape?
Yo, you're corralling us! Where the fuck are we gonna go? Where do we go?
In at least a dozen instances last summer, caught on video in cities like New York, Los Angeles, Portland, Chicago, and Seattle.
Where the fuck they want us to go?
Police used a controversial crowd control strategy known to protesters and civil rights advocates as kettling. The tactic consists of officers surrounding protesters, trapping them in the streets with no clear way out, sometimes for hours, often before tear gassing, beating, and arresting them en masse. Law enforcement officials usually refer to this tactic as corralling, containment, or encirclement, not kettling. And some police departments have denied that they deploy this tactic at all.
First time I'm hearing about kettling being associated with the police. It is not part of our training. It's not something we practice or encourage.
According to a New York police training manual obtained by The Intercept, this crowd control technique is designed to isolate a group of people from a larger crowd for the purpose of making arrests. But in practice, this strategy indiscriminately subjects everyone in a crowd to the same treatment, regardless of individual conduct. Often, once people are surrounded, they are subjected to violence that they have no means of escaping. One particularly brutal example of kettling took place last year in Charlotte, North Carolina, where law enforcement officers trapped hundreds of protesters between buildings and lines of cops before assaulting them with pepper balls, flashbang grenades, and tear gas. The following is a reconstruction, produced in collaboration with Situ Research, that places video evidence in the context of a 3D digital model of the urban environment to gain a better understanding of the sequence of events that transpired that evening. On the evening of June 2, 2020, several hundred protesters were marching in downtown Charlotte, moving northwest on 4th Street. At 9:26 p.m., the crowd passed a group of police officers in riot gear positioned along the march route.
Rory's got a platoon on Tryon, out of sight. Dancer's platoon on stage now on College, out of sight. We're going to push their ass straight up 4th. As soon as they get up on 4th, because we got a bottleneck now, Rory's squad is going to step out and hammer their ass. When they start running down, Dancer's squad is going to step up and hammer their ass. Gas. We're going to fucking pop it up. All right, get a bang out. Don't throw it in front of them. I want it behind. Hey, if you have to throw it, don't throw it behind the crowd so they run up. Hey, where's your mind? They're all about to get gas.
It was the 5th day of protests in the city, and earlier that evening, someone in the crowd had thrown bottles toward the officers, according to statements later made by police. But when protesters reached the corner of 4th and College Streets at 9:29 p.m., the march was calm and peaceful. As the protesters kept walking, it became clear that CMPD had blocked all exit points along the block.
Hands up! Don't shoot! Hands up! Don't shoot!
Suddenly, at 9:30, officers positioned out of sight at the top of the block on Tryon Street ran out to close off 4th Street and immediately started firing tear gas and flashbang devices directly at the advancing crowd.
Okay. No!
State investigators said that police issued a warning, but witnesses we spoke to said they did not hear one. Justin LaFrancois, a local journalist who was live streaming the protest, describes the scene.
Nobody ever gave a dispersal order or said where people were supposed to leave or exit.
As people ran back, the officers at the southeast end of the block deployed tear gas into the fleeing crowd.
They closed the whole group in between a line of riot officers and a wall of tear gas.
The gas formed a thick wall of smoke that stretched across 4th Street.
We're trapped. They're shooting pepper balls at us. They've thrown out tear gas, flashbangs, smoke. They just chased everybody down this way. There's a line of riot police up there. There's a line of riot police back there.
As police closed in, people began screaming and gasping for air. Those on the sides of the crowd were the first to be hit with tear gas and other police weapons, while those in the middle were getting trampled by other panicked protesters. A third group of officers, positioned on the second floor of a parking garage, directly above the crowd, started shooting pepper balls at the protesters. Justin Mackerlane, a photographer who was caught in the kettle, describes the chaos.
Not only were we getting hit from both sides, we were getting hit from the top as well.
Officials later said that the officers positioned in the garage had only been shooting at the walls above the crowd, but local journalist LaFrancois said he saw people get hit in the face, neck, and shoulders. Charlotte officials have denied that what the police had staged was a kettle at all, with a city council member, Ed Driggs, at one point blaming the wind, which he said created the sensation of being in a kettle. Investigators concluded that 2 exit points had remained open for people to disperse, but the streets were so filled with tear gas that those who were there said it was impossible to know that there wasn't a line of officers behind the smoke, and that in order to leave, they would have had to run through a thick cloud of choking gas. Christy Puckett-Williams, an organizer with the ACLU who was trapped in the kettle, described protesters having to make panicked decisions about their safest way out.
You shouldn't have to be placed in a position where you have to make those split-second decisions about how do I get oxygen in the midst of all this tear gas? How do I get to a safe place where I'm not getting shot with pepper bullets?
The actions of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department exposed hundreds of peaceful protesters to tear gas and other less-than-lethal weapons within a confined space. The careful positioning of the police and their statements caught on video clearly demonstrate that this outcome was premeditated and that the operation was executed with extensive coordination.
As soon as they get up on 4th, because we got a bottleneck now, Rory's squad is going to step out and hammer their ass.
The use of kettling in response to protests has proliferated, as other police tools have faced condemnation and legal challenges. But there has been little legal scrutiny of this tactic in particular. Kettling is largely unregulated in police departments, and training on its use includes little, if any, guidance on how to mitigate its harm, even at the most basic level of allowing people a way out. Because kettling is essentially a temporary movement of bodies that leaves behind no trace, it can be hard to prove that it happened after the fact. This diagram provides a summary of the CMPD tactics deployed on the evening of June 2nd. First, police closed off the northwest corner of East 4th Street with tear gas and flashbangs. The protesters remaining on the block run southeast, but police deploy a wall of tear gas at the exit point. Panicked and concentrated at the center of the block, they are shot at with pepper balls before ultimately escaping through a cloud of gas. Public officials, including mayors and police leaders, have offered wildly inconsistent explanations about when kettling may be appropriate, what it is, or whether it's even used at all.
First, let me say unequivocally that there was no pre-planned operation by CMPD, Command, the Emergency Management Office, or anyone else to use officers to block protesters, box them in, or kettle, or anything else on the night of June the 2nd.
We that were there on June 2nd were irreparably damaged. We were changed forever. My friend and I thought we were going to die. To die. We weren't just afraid, we were terrified that these police were going to suffocate us to death. How does that community ever trust people who lay a trap for them to hurt them?
They came out with grenade. They came out with tankers on harmless black men who were fighting police brutality. The academic was not even going through due process to know anything, but they knew how to control Black Lives Matter crowd. They knew how to use tear gas. They knew how to witch hunt every sponsor. They knew how to track those who were in attendance and arrest them. And one person drove through 4 black gay men. Until now, August the 20th, the police don't know who registered the car. The police don't know who owns the car. The police does not want to treat it as a hate crime. America, tell us, is black life valid in America? Or are you guys having a camouflage of pride? Is this also a political statement by the American people, where you begin to play politics with black life, trying to turn our eyes from the main matter? Could it be that the police knew who owned that car, and that car is owned by a Caucasian? It's owned by a white person. Let me put it the way it is. And they are trying to damage control the whole situation. Because there is no reason they will say they do not know the driver of the car. The car was found. It's not that the car was not found. The car was found. Let's get this straight.
Run in the South Shore neighborhood. 3 people were killed early Sunday morning when the driver struck a group of pedestrians.
WGN's Dana Rebick speaking with the family of one of the victims. Dana.
Well, one of the men killed worked with children on the south side of Chicago at the Gary Comer Youth Center as a culture specialist and was thinking about applying to grad schools. His life tragically cut short as police now try to find this hit-and-run driver.
Jalen was an outstanding young man. Recently just graduated from University of Michigan. And came back home, worked with a lot of youth on the south side of Chicago. His future was bright. It's unfortunate that it was cut short.
Curtis Henderson's cousin, 23-year-old Jalen Osley, one of 3 young men killed in a violent hit-and-run early Sunday. It happened around 5 a.m. outside Jeffery Pub, an LGBTQ bar in the 7000 block of South Jeffery. Witnesses say an argument inside the club spilled out onto the street.
A crowd followed them, trying to break it up and keep them from fighting. And then out of nowhere, a silver car heading south on Jeffery, speeding, I don't know how fast, but very, very fast, struck the entire crowd, almost like bowling pins. About 3 or 4 bodies went flying through the air.
Video obtained by CWB Chicago shows the silver sedan traveling south on Jeffery, where a group of men is seen standing in one lane of the street. The driver swerves a bit, then plows through the group, not slowing down.
It looked like pure evil. Like I said, it was pure evil because you saw the crowd in the street. I mean, to just speed through like that. It looked deliberate.
4 people were hit, 3 of them died, including Jalen Osley, 27-year-old Devontae Vivitor of Chicago, and 25-year-old Donald Huey of South Holland.
I understand that video is out there and it's pretty horrific.
Chicago police say they found the hit-and-run vehicle 4 blocks away. There are now calls to charge this as a hate crime, given the proximity to Jeffrey's Pub, but police say they are not considering that at this time because they don't yet know the driver's motive.
We need to know who the driver was, and we know that people out there know that. So we do ask that people come forward and provide us that information, and then let us do the investigation to help bring, some solace to some of these families.
They were able to recover the car, so that should help connect some dots. Jalen was someone's son, someone's grandson, someone's brother. He's on a straight and narrow path. He wasn't involved in anything. So we're just looking for any information that we can get to really help solve this crime.
Detectives have been in touch with employees at Jeffery Pub determining if this driver was inside the bar before this happened. That silver sedan was, of course, abandoned. They believe the person or people in that car ran from that vehicle, and so far, no one in custody. But you can pass along any information on this crime anonymously at cpdtip.com.
Thank you, Dana.
There are DNAs on the car. Cars don't just appear and disappear. Even if, let's say, they don't know who registered. How many cars, how many brand of that car? Let's say, for example, that car is a Toyota Corolla. How many Toyota Corolla are in Chicago? How many Toyota Corolla are owned by people who live in Chicago? How many registered vehicles per se of that car can be linked to any of the victims in this said incident? How many cars can be recorded at least they have driven because they are ETA, they are toll bars, they are toll gates getting to any city? Every city has a toll gate. Every city has a surveillance camera. Every city has a traffic control cameras or even ticket cameras. How many brand of that car can be seen at that location? So there is no reasonable excuse to say they do not know who the killers of these black men are. Is it because they are black? These are the questions to ask. And as black people, there is one thing I can say from this video. Do we truly have love in the black LGBTQ community? This is not like a political statement. This is not me trying to be racist or trying to be bash. But honestly, do we truly love ourselves? Let's not tag this a hate crime by a homophobe, because the killers of these black men might be queer. The killers of these black queer men might be black. Do we truly love ourselves? This video should be a time of a sober reflection of what we call the LGBTQ community. Do we truly have a community? Let's say, for example, in Toronto, do we truly have a community? Kudos to all those people who have communities. But is our community Tinder? Sorry, is our community Grinder? Or is it Jack D? Or is it our numerous hookup culture? What indeed is our community? If they say the LGBTQ community in America, the LGBTQ community in Canada, please come out. What truly can we hold and say this is our community? Yes, we have the Vogue culture, but apart from Vogue culture, we need to build a community. We need to build a community of love, because I don't understand how the fight in the first place escalated. What is it with this drama with queer people? Why can't we love each other? Why can't we hold barbecue together? Why can't we hold friends outing without drama? What is this idea of trying to be bushy and raj, and you feel the only way to be bushy, classy is by trolling on others, putting them down? The police in America needs to do better. We've had a lot of intoxication with the police in America. When I mean America, I'm not just talking about the United States of America, but I mean America, Central America, both North, South, and Central America. The police relationship with queer people have been appalling. We have begun to see a drastic change in the policing system, or in the police system, when it comes to queer people. But on the same matter, because we have not had a good relationship with the police in any country, queer people have learned to not settle their problems using the police system. We've learned to settle our problems with fists. So we need this time for the police to make friendly programs where they can build the trust of LGBTQ communities. We need to build our relationship with the police. I know when we talked about the Black Lives Matter and everybody wanted the police to be defunded, but at that, though that it has died, but there have not been any solutions. These are the issues with our community. We have problems. We only talk about those problems when these problems are trending. Once the trend is over, it seems as if everything had died without no solutions. I think right now what we need as a community is for us to find lasting solutions to problems that deal with LGBTQ matters. The first problems we have is the relationship with the police. We need the police academy to not just hire queer people, but we need them to have a form of a relationship, a form of program where they can talk to community leaders in situations like this, where the community can have a conversation with the police force. We don't only want to have a conversation with the police force when it comes to the Pride festivity, and then we see the police standing around Pride doing Pride festivals to protect the festival, because honestly they are not there for us. They are only there because of the benefit of the city, what the city benefits from tourism during Pride, and how the city has monetized and commercialized Pride. So we need a more suitable relationship with the police academy, where queer people can openly have conversations with the police, and this can only happen when we have a queer representative. And I have suggested this before. If we could have a gay governor is not like a governor who is gay, but a gay governor will be somebody who will stand for queer people in different cities and will be the link between the political seat of that city and the community. When the politicians need to speak, this will be our queer representative. We don't want it chosen by the government. We want the community to come out and choose their leaders who will represent them politically and who will represent them also in relative matters when it comes to policing and guiding the community. The second thing we need to address the strives in our community. Why is our community always striving? This has to do with mental health crisis. If you live in Toronto, you can testify to this. If you get on the TTC, you will see at least in a day a black queer man that is mentally challenged. In a day, at least. Sometimes if you take the TTC more than 5 times, you will see up to 10 of them. Why are we not talking about the mental health crisis in America? Why is America trying to hide this mental health crisis and this homelessness crisis in America? We need to start talking about this. We do not need all these fundings. You know, in America, they give you funding when you don't have housing. They give you funding for shelters. When you cannot get a job, they give you funding to survive. No, we don't need fundings. What we need now are opportunities for black people to strive. Give us equal opportunity. Give us equal rights. Don't give us opportunities because we are queer people. Give us opportunities because we are humans. Give us opportunities because we are qualified. Give us opportunity because we can perform. Give us opportunities because we are determined and we are passionate about our community. This is the second thing we need to address as black people. When we look at our community, the only thing we see, if we like it or not, unless we want to lie to ourselves, be it from Africa to America, the same thing lies in every nation. Poverty is number one. Every black community, every black neighborhood, every black resident has poverty stinking on our doors. In short, if we lose our jobs, we will be on the same streets of America, homeless, on tents, without any survivor. The second thing we see in our community is mental health crisis. Mental health crisis that has to do with systematic racism and that has to do also with slavery. These things need to be addressed. We are tired of politicians taking a knee with us. We are tired of all these conferences and talk. You guys have the political powers to change rules. You guys have political powers to change laws. You guys have the capacity to make sure that all these things we talk about can be changed. Why take a knee with us instead of changing the papers? Why take a knee with us instead of changing the laws? Why take a knee with us by tweeting and liking Black Lives Matters instead of you truly doing that by your action? So there are so many things to talk about when it comes, but we should not forget that 3 black men lost their life. Lost their life to a failed community, lost their life to a failed policing system, lost their life to restless political arguments, political debates, instead of changing the laws. Black men lost their life because we do not look out. We do not love each other. I do not know what had caused the fight. I tried to look deep into whatever has caused the fight. But like I said, these things are the repeated things we see when we look at black communities everywhere. And these things need to be addressed. And it cannot be addressed just by talking and educating. That's just one way to go. But it can only be addressed when we begin to put black people in places of power. when we begin to put black community in places where they can get funding for development, where we as community leaders begin to love the people we are governing, begin to love the people we are policing, begin to love the people we are leading, why we have not gotten any success, why we have not gotten to where we ought to be, is because the leaders we have, are wicked, greedy, self-centered leaders who think about only themselves and their families and not about the people they are leading. So a recap on the news. 3 queer men were killed on Sunday the 14th of August. The police say they do not know who the driver was or is. They had recovered the car that was used. The exhibit, the car. They cannot search, show. They did not use DNA. They did not scan it to know who the owner of this car is. The third thing from the police that is annoying me is that they say they are not treating it, they are yet to treat it as a hate crime. To the 3 souls that are not with us, your death will not be in vain, because it will ignite in me and anyone that sees your story the anger for change, the anger for a better tomorrow, the anger to speak. When they say we are inclusive, we need to start asking questions. When people say we love queer people, we are inclusive of all people, we need to ask you, how are you inclusive? You own a company, just using in general, you hire one person, but the rest 99 people are all Caucasians, and you bring that one person you hired, you take a picture and snap, boy, put it on a poster and say you're inclusive. Oh, the jokes on us. You say you're inclusive. We look at all your places of power. When it comes to CEO, executive, we look at all the office of power and they don't look like me. And you are inclusive. How are you damn inclusive? Even to the extent that an airline had to celebrate the first colored person to be a pilot. How are you inclusive? You know, the funny thing is, I know this is very hard and I don't even know how to end this, but America has its good. But as colored people, as black people, America has not only shown that we do not belong in this land, America has not only shown we are not welcomed in this land, but America has shown we are less when it comes to humans in America. America has shown we are not valued when it comes as human rights. Because I still can't grave it in my head. They tell us that we were savaged in the bush, in the jungle, naked, and we did not have any form of civilization. But in all our non-civilization, there was not a time we ever had a human market where we sold people. In our own civilized state, we never had a port where we put people in chain and put them in curtains as slaves. In our own civilized state, we never had a place where we auctioned humans. So when we talk about civilization, I don't think America has the right to talk about civilization and morals. Because when it comes to civilization and when it comes to moral, America has no moral standing to justify what they have done to us as a people for 400 years. And America has no right to tell us how to grieve about what they've done to us for 400 years. People grieve differently. But one thing we as colored people have gotten, and we've had enough, is for people who do these things or who did these things to us to look for how to justify what they still do today. They say there is no more slavery. But is that true? Has slavery really been abolished? That is the end of this news to us, news today. And I still remain Chimerize Henry Ahonaya.